is Anna Grace. I'm presently 21, currently living in the state of Colorado, and I am impacted by HLH. I have had many different medical issues over the last decade, and had medical issues for 7 years prior to leading up to my first presentation with the condition. But it was the culmination of everything kind of converging into a really, really bad situation where I became hyperinflamed and I went undiagnosed for several days, and it nearly cost me my life. So I'm very lucky to be here. I'm very lucky that it was caught and treated. From the time that I had started presenting with the condition, it was 5 days before someone first asked the question, and it was 6 days when the bone marrow biopsy confirmed the diagnosis. I think what was different for me, because I had medical issues leading up to it, what was different for me was realizing that I had a concrete diagnosis and that there was a set standard, and it was the first time that I had ever fit a standard, which, provided all the hopes and fears that those paths can conceivably cause. Very specific to HLH, it's a hyperinflammatory disorder, and I have described the way the immune system works to those who may not have a great understanding. Is kind of like a car engine. If you have a healthy immune system, your car engine, you've got automatic gears. You don't think about your engine adapting to the environment around you. When you're someone who has some sort of immune dysregulation disorder, whether that's your immune system can't rev itself up properly or it can't turn itself down, the engine is stick shift. And you have to be the one to dictate when it needs to react to its environment. It's not capable of doing it on its own. HLH is a situation where it can't rev down properly, and you either figure out how to control that stick shift in time to avoid crashing your car, or you have to replace your whole engine. You can compare that to people going on immunomodulatory therapy, or people who, like me, ultimately need to replace the immune system altogether because there isn't enough time to actually fix the problem before you have a catastrophic outcome. That it can present in many different ways, and that although it's uncommon, it's really important for it to be identified, because that's sometimes the difference between life and death for someone. I was diagnosed as septic, and I was later confirmed that many sets of cultures were negative. I first had HLH back in spring of 2020. Over the last 5 years, it's definitely been something that is always on the back of our minds. That at the drop of a dime, I'm potentially very, very sick, and that we're having to work with huge provider teams to handle the fallout. Sometimes having to work with people we've never worked with before on a whim to avoid ICU or to avoid a long-term issue, knowing that every time it hits, I'm less likely to survive it statistically. I think, understandably, there's a lot of fear around what these flares look like, and the fact that in this pocket of time I'm not particularly eligible for a BMT, even though I've needed one. More and more, you just have this feeling, you know, that your life is on the line. That we work best as a team. I would say I draw hope from knowing that any outcome is not guaranteed. And although good outcomes are not guaranteed, certainly we all know of people or stories where histio has won. There's also a lot of people who survive it. There's people who live with it. There's people who are cured of it. Knowing that you never know where you're going to find yourself on the other side of it is where you can draw hope, because a bad outcome is not guaranteed, which means a good outcome is possible. My happy place. I love connecting with other people. I love studying. I love understanding the world around me. And when I'm in a really bad situation, usually I lean very heavily into those things to get me through to the other side. That I'm more adaptable than I think I am sometimes. I would say I tend to have a very rigid black and white personality, and to look back at some of the situations that I've been in, and I mean, in this context, some of the situations that HLH has put me in, I find that I've been able to source resilience within myself that I never knew was there. It was something I came across when looking for information on HLH very early on, because it was something that a lot of providers weren't familiar with, or even the providers that were familiar with it, oftentimes it was, well, you know, that was the one thing we studied, but we've never seen, and that my case looked very different from another case that someone had seen. And so initially the search of information and the research, and then I had known about the association for a couple years before becoming more directly involved, and I definitely benefited from some of the resources that had been provided. I think specifically about finding others who had been in similar situations, which wasn't really easy to do outside of the social atmosphere that the Histio Association has given. And I think my desire to connect with other people and to make a change for other people, based on my own experiences, is what ultimately drove me to seek becoming an ambassador. Again, that every situation is unique, and that your own story is your own story. You are not the person next to you. You're not the histio patient next to you. You have your own path. And once again, knowing that you're on your own path, that's where you can draw hope from. because knowledge is power, and knowledge gives people the power to change things for the better. It helps other patients to know they're not alone. It helps providers to know what to look out for, what possibilities there are, because if you know about something, then you can do something about it. Connecting with another person to help draw strength from in your own circumstance, or to help problem solve when you see something like HLH come up. I think sharing that knowledge is important, because if I don't share it, no one's gonna know. Because I've had active illness and it's impacted my day-to-day function and my availability, a lot of what I've done is work online, so social media work, giving a face to the name of histio. I've also gone out of my way to draw other people to learn about histio, and there have been other communities offline that have ultimately had the opportunity to learn a thing or two about it by me going public. So that's really how I work. I've not had the opportunity to attend any in-person events. That doesn't mean I wouldn't like to at some point, but I've definitely found, even through my own limits, that social media and the online world has really given me a platform to speak my piece and connect with other people. Her name was Cheyenne. She had HLH many years prior to me and had many different episodes of it. She passed away a year ago, August 12th, was in her mid-20s, and had a loving husband and a family, had just finished her college education, and had undergone an organ transplant. Cheyenne was not a quitter. She fought very hard and publicly fought very hard until the end of her life, and also went out of her way to help anyone who was in similar circumstances. And I had the chance in a more private setting to get to know her, and had the privilege of calling her my friend. She's still someone I think about all the time, and she lived every day to the fullest and took every opportunity that she had to spend time doing the things that she loved and spending time with the people that she loved despite her illness. For her family, I want them and the community to know that she is an inspiration to me and an example to me on how to stay inspired and motivated, and how to spend and value your time, and how to treat people. I am honored to have known someone like her. I think first and foremost, remembering to stay in the moment. I know firsthand what it's like to receive a devastating diagnosis, but the way you figure out how to navigate that is by staying in the moment and remembering that, again, no one outcome is guaranteed, and that you can always choose to do something in hopes of a good outcome. And I think I also want other histio families and patients to know that it's okay for treatment to be difficult. I think a lot of the times we talk about how to make it easier, but I think in order to really go through it and get to the other side, you have to really grasp that it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's okay because it gets you to a better outcome. That's what makes it worth it. When I was first diagnosed with HLH, I didn't think I was going to survive. None of the providers thought I was going to survive. There were people gearing my parents up for me to die. And here I am 5 years, almost 5 years now later. I'm alive. That's proof that sometimes you just don't know how things are going to turn out. Knowing that your path is unique, and that even if you do meet a bad outcome, ultimately your experience helps people in the future, then in the moment that you don't know where you're going to end up or where your story is going to end up, and it's the hope for what you don't know is going to happen that continues to drive you forward. That there's hope for those with histio.